Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, everyone, for juz number 5. And Alhamdulillah, we are back here again today with Ustadha Nadda, who will talk to us about what she considers the summary of juz number 5 and also some gems from certain verses. And inshallah, hopefully, ending with a story that you can use as an anchor point whenever you think about juz number 5. So, without taking any more time, I'll pass it over to Ustadha Nadda. Ustadha Nadda, over to you. Bismillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakallah khairan, Ustadh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for attending again. Inshallah, today we'll be going over Juz 5. So let's begin with the overview. So this particular surah is very, it has a lot of themes going on. It's quite overwhelming as well when you actually read the translation and you try to understand. There's so many laws which are talked about. So many incidents are happening at the same time. So there's a lot to go in detail. But due to the time, we'll try and see if we can take away at least one message from this. So just the kind of overview. So this juz covers from verse 24 um till verse 147. So the first part talks about the kind of social matters in terms of family, how to deal with your family members, if there's disputes within the families, how to resolve those. um, there's also verses that talks about who you can get married to, who are people that needs to be prioritized when it gets to marriage, so all those kind of matters. um, then it moves on to the purification, wealth, soul, and body. And this is a kind of a theme where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about those people who have money, but they feel very, um, they don't feel the need to give the money. So they have this kind of attachment to the money, to the wealth. And this kind of has an effect on your inner kind of personality, your purification of the soul. So, and Allah talks about those people who don't give charity, and Allah knows, because at the end of the day it is Allah who has given you the money that you hold now, that you're arrogant of, and you don't want to give it to other people. So that kind of particular verses then follows on to the wealth. Then it moves on to the people who have been who are the weaker kind of the community, people who are deprived of parents, orphans, widowed women who've lost their husbands in the battle. Because this surah was revealed after, mainly after the battle of Uhud, some of the verses. um, so it talks about people who suffered so much because they didn't have someone to look after their house. They had financial difficulties. So Allah talks about those deprived people, so protecting the weak. And then it moves on to verses which talk about seeking justice. There's verses that talk about justice, we could say, in a way, how we should be able to deal with everything in accordance to the law of Allah. So it's not just about what we think is right and wrong, it is what Allah thinks is right and wrong. And it links back to the Battle of Uhud, because some of the archers who were told to stay on the mountain by the Prophet ﷺ, they left. So they weren't supposed to leave the mountain. They were supposed to stay there till the end of the battle, until the Prophet ﷺ tells them to get off the mountain. But because they thought that the battle was over, and in that kind of um, confusion, they left the mountain. So this talks about how you, regardless of what happens at that moment, or what you've been told to do, you should stick to that. So if Allah has commanded you to do a certain act, then you should stick to that, regardless of if there's a friend or a family member who can give you the wrong advice, but you should know within yourself what is right and wrong. So those kind of verses talks about Allah guiding you to the right path. And then lastly is the outcomes of people. And this particular bunch of verses talks about hypocrites and people who have lied, who don't believe in Allah, who associate partners with Allah, regardless of the evidence they've been shown. Because remember, just before this, verses of Surah Ali Imran were revealed, and they were about the Ahlul Kitab, the Jews and the Christians, and regardless of giving them the proof, they still don't believe. So Allah talks about some of those kind of particular people, and people who don't give charity and the kind of outcomes they will face, people who don't follow the Quran and the Sunnah, and they don't stick to obeying the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So these were kind of the kind of um, a summary of just Juz 5 and the different kind of aspects of this. It was really difficult to pinpoint certain things, but hopefully the students can understand, because this surah is very detailed, it's very difficult to understand. So I hope I try to make it as clear as possible. So the core themes are many in this particular juz, but I've tried to narrow it down to four main ones, which I think are like the highlight. The first one is the laws that Allah has introduced us. So, in terms of laws, there's many laws that Allah has introduced. So, to do with in terms of marriage, inheritance, there's laws to do with family matters, orphans, um, and it's really important that as families and whoever's studying the Quran, we go through those laws. And I think sometimes we forget that because we think Quran is only to go back to when we're in, we need some sort of spiritual kind of boost. So when we go back and we read the Quran and we feel better, we never kind of take this approach that we need to go back to the Quran and see if it will be able to solve some of our matters. And that's because of the lack of time we put in when we study the Quran. We sometimes read and we try to make the best effort to read the translation, but you should try and see if you should encourage your parents as well, and when you grow up as well yourself, that you take up on subjects such as fiqh, uh, law related courses, so you go deeper in your understanding of the law, because the Quran is not just about, the first step is the belief and you believe in Allah. But then how do you actually act upon that belief is through the studying of the Quran. And that cannot be done if you're not putting the time and effort in. So I think that's really important, that there's this whole kind of verses talking about the laws. And sometimes we just read past by it and that's it, we move on to the next chapter of the Quran. We don't realize the importance. And it's because those laws are not implemented in the society right now. We face so many difficulties. The poverty rates are so high. People are deprived of their rights because we don't fully understand the laws which are set by Allah and the Prophet ﷺ. So it's really important that we, take this seriously. The second theme is with regards to society, and it links with the theme of law, because if as a society we don't realize the importance of studying the Quran and the importance of encouraging our youngsters, our children to study and further their studies, um, then we can't as a family, as a kind of a community, um, you know develop in understanding the Quran. But alhamdulillah, FEP and other madrasas as well around your communities, there are courses which are happening, so they are trying to work. But this doesn't really happen in every society, where the approach is that they try to encourage you to learn the Quran. So as a society, it's our responsibility that if we're studying as well, we spread that to other people as well. We don't just keep it to ourselves. Number three is the rights of the weak. So again, is realizing that if Allah has given you a particular blessing, um, we should be thankful of that, but also you should try to take a step further and push yourself and think, how can this blessing I can use to help other people? Because there's a reason why Allah has given you that blessing. We shouldn't just think that because Allah is the greatest and He's the creator and He gives blessings to everyone, and we should just think of it that way, and that's it, there's nothing more to that. But in reality, there's a reason why Allah has created every individual, one of you. And there's also a reason why those people who've joined us in this class today and who are listening, there's a reason behind that as well, that why it was just these people who are listening right now. So there's a reason behind everything we do, and there's a reason why Allah has blessed you with those certain skills and talent. So use that, try to understand your talent, learn about yourself, and then use it for the benefit of your people. And then again, going back to society, you're looking after your society, you're giving back to your community. And lastly is about importance of obeying the law and the Prophet. And I chose that as a highlight of one of the core themes, was because this particular portion focused on the kind of issues that happened after the Battle of Uhud, which was covered in the last session, and what happened after the defeat. People were suffering. So it just shows that when we don't follow the laws according to Allah or the Prophet, then there will be problems that come after it, and you will have to be really patient. And regardless of what happened in Battle of Badr, even though the Muslims were the minority, we didn't have, compared to the non-Muslims, they were, a lot in terms of numbers, but they won because the Muslims won because they were obeying Allah. And I think Mufti Hilal did mention on the fact that I think he gave an example as well of, when you give an exam. So it's having that faith element. So sometimes we do things and we're obeying everything, but we don't have the faith element within ourselves. That's really important that we're doing this. Sometimes we even in Surah Nisa, there's verses where people give charity, but that's only to show off that, or because people say, they praise them that, oh, look, this person is giving charity. But then at the back of their mind, they're forgetting why they're doing this charity. They're not doing this charity to show people. Rather, they're doing the charity work because Allah has blessed them with the wealth. And that person knows that this wealth is it's not mine, it's Allah's amana that I am giving forward. So I thought that these four themes were really important to highlight, and maybe every time you come back to this surah, you will realize that these four themes really tie in really well, strongly together. So hopefully you remember that. Um, Something else I wanted to speak about was the foundation of justice and fear. So it's sometimes we understand the laws and what we need to do, but because of our position that we're in, I just wanted to slightly touch upon that. We we take advantage of our position. So for example, I can give an example. In your class, for example, there might be certain students who have given a higher position than other students. In my time, we used to have like a class prefect, so a class representative, and they used to, look after the children. If there's any issues, they would go to the head teacher and, have a kind of a collective email or complaint or any kind of suggestion. Then you would go to that class member in your class. So, sometimes when you're in this kind of position, make sure that you're fair and you don't take advantage of your justice, and um, you don't forget about the person who is struggling to come to you. I remember when we used to have class representative, they used to be with like a particular kind of group of students because they used to feel as though they're kind of in a higher position than the other students, and not every student can go and approach them. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. But obviously, in a larger kind of a scale, is people who are in higher positions as head teachers, as in kind of political settings, that we should always think of people as our community, and we should always treat them in justice, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we will be questioned about the position we were given in and why we were put in that, and did we fairly did our obligations correctly. um, and then later on there's a verse in Surah Al-Nisa, and it talks about because it's such an overwhelming kind of a surah, there's so many laws, so many details. Like if you read the actual tafsir and the commentary on this, there's pages, so it can become very overwhelming for you. But then Allah comes back and He says that, there's a reason why I've presented these laws for you, is in order to make things clear for you and guide you to the good practices. And that's why I was linking that back to, what I spoke about, the law and the society, the core themes. If we are not understanding these laws, how are things supposed to be clear, and how are we supposed to be guided then to the good practices? So this kind of a gap in between. So if we don't study the laws that Allah has presented, and Allah is saying Himself that these laws are there to make things easier for you, they're there to make things clearer for you in life, to make the correct decisions. Um, then if you're not studying those laws and you don't understand them, then you can't reach the good, practices. And if you can't reach the good practices, and then you can't reach the higher level of piety that we talked about in previous sessions. So it's kind of it links all together. So you can't just focus on one aspect of of uh, of your religion. You have to take in account of all the things, your conscience, how your relationship is with the Quran, how much are you studying the Quran. So that's why we emphasize and we wanted to do these classes, was because we take a lot of time reading the Quran and memorizing the Quran, which is absolutely, brilliant to do. But at the same time, it's really important that we understand what we're reading, um, because then we face so many problems in our life, personal lives, and they affect our personal decisions that we take when we go to college, when we go to universities. When you go to universities, you will face problems. There will be different ideas which will be introduced to you, and you will be confused. And if you don't have this understanding of your religion clearly, then it will be more harder for you to understand. So now is the time for you, and hopefully these sessions will help you to understand the importance of studying the Quran and understanding these surahs, these words of Allah, that they make an impact in your life, inshallah. And one more kind of a last kind of a message. Oops. Yeah, is to maintain a balance between the rights of Allah and the rights of people. And I think this is so important because there's always this kind of imbalance, and I think that's why there's this kind of I feel a strong family only stands together, or a strong community only stands together, if they acknowledge the rights of Allah and the rights of other people. Sometimes we focus so much on the rights of Allah and our spirituality, which is our individual task. We should be doing that. We should be encouraging each other. Absolutely, we should. But at the same time, we don't see it as much of an importance to how it's supposed to be when it comes to other people. And it's very small things. It doesn't, because I think every time you talk about rights of people, we automatically think of the neighbors, or we think about the poor people, and we forget our family. And I think it's so important, because if you don't start with the people around you, you would never be able to make that impact outside of that circle. If you're only focused on the people outside, because I feel, because it's easier to help the people who are outside the circle of your family, because they praise you, they acknowledge that you've done something good. Whereas with family, sometimes they wouldn't acknowledge that you've done something, um, because you're always with them. So even if you do something different for them, um, we sometimes don't feel the need that we need to be thankful to our family members, because they're always with us. Obviously, they know that, for example, our mothers, that our mothers make food for us, so it's fine, we don't need to thank them. But it's really the small things that make the difference. You should be thanking your mothers, your dads, for providing you with your needs, for fulfilling your wishes. The fact that they cook for you, they help you in your studies, they make things easier for you. Yes, it is their responsibility, but it's also your responsibility to acknowledge that. And even if they don't, it's still your responsibility to take care of your parents, to take care of your family members, because that's your right. That's a responsibility that Allah has given you. You're not in a position to question that. So at the same time, it's difficult. It's absolutely very difficult to attain that kind of a level, to be able to look after your family. But try to, you know, see it as that way, that it is equally important as, you know, our belief in Allah. Because if you believe in Allah, then automatically we have to, you know, reset our minds that it's our duty to also look after the people which are around us as well, in any small way. If you have smaller siblings, you know, do something for them, you know. For example, I have a niece and nephew, so I always encourage my elder nephew to do something for his little sister. You know, just make a small card for Ramadan or something, and, you know, wish her, or if she's saying something, and then sometimes I swap it, and then I tell my little niece to do something for her older brother. So, you know, you do small things and they really make a big difference. So it's really important that you keep a balance between the rights of Allah and the rights of people, and that's when you can absolutely attain this level of ihsan in everything you do. So hopefully, inshallah, you know, this is clear and you understand the kind of lessons I'm trying to derive from Surah Nisa. Lastly, I just wanted to finish. Hopefully, I'm not running out of time. I wanted to speak about this verse, and it's such an amazing and beautiful verse. You know, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُخَفِّفَ عَنْكُمْ وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. So it is Allah's will to lighten your burdens, and we always sometimes feel as though we're always giving so much, and because we're praying and we're reading the Quran and we have this, and sometimes it feels like that you can't do it. But all of those things are placed and been prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lighten your burdens. If those things were not in your life, things would have been so much more difficult for you. And Allah does realize this, that, you know, that mankind was created weak. So it's okay if you make a mistake and things go wrong. It's fine, as long as you keep returning back to Allah. You know, Allah has put us in this world because He understands the burdens that we are, the responsibilities we are. So as long as you're trying your best and you're always trying and not giving up, I think that's the main thing you have to keep in your mind always, that you're always trying to you know, keep going. You don't give up, regardless of whatever your responsibility, regardless of how bad the things go. You keep going, and Allah will most certainly help you, because He's there to lighten your burdens. So I really hope that, you know, this kind of a summary for this juz, I feel, was, yeah.
Jazakallahu khairan, Ustadha Nadda, for that. It's very, very useful, especially the way you broke it down, because Islam covers all aspects of life, and juz number 5 kind of goes more deeper into that and makes us understand. So, Jazakallahu khairan for that, Ustadha Nadda. We are getting closer to iftar time. So Jazakallah everyone else. What I would like to say is, inshallah, same time tomorrow, 7:30, we'll be back. And also, we will be back with Ustadha Zainab Mufti, who you haven't had yet, but you will have. And she's promised somewhat to bring some poetry to the Seerah lesson. Well, maybe not promised, but it's kind of been forced upon her to bring some poetry to the tafsir lesson. So, inshallah, look out for that tomorrow. For now, that's the end. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.